Okay, so when I was learning how to play jazz, the academic world taught me bebop scales. But the more I transcribed, the more I began to understand that bebop scales didn't really fit my worldview. Let me explain why. So most of you are probably familiar with the concept of bebop scales as a method to maintain chord tones on strong beats. Now, the more I transcribed my favorite players, Sonny Stitt, Charlie Parker, Barry Harris, just to name a few, the more I noticed that this system wasn't as clean as it's made out to be. And what does that mean? Well, often I found that chromaticism existed in places other than where academia told me it should be. So look at this classic bird lick. We're told that in the major bebop scale, the chromatic note goes between the 5 and the 6. But when Bird plays this lick, there's also one between 6 and 7. And this is just one example, but there are plenty that fall into this category. So my main gripe with using bebop scales is that the system forces us to use a different scale to get a different chromatic passage. We're taught that C major bebop gives us a half step between G and A, the 6 and 5. But if I want the typical chromatic passage between 5 and 4, like, I have to use G dominant bebop. Now, theoretically, this makes sense because over G7, we're keeping the chord tones on strong beats. But as I mentioned in another video, we don't need a separate scale to achieve this. We can practice this within the context of C major. So try this. Take a C major scale and ask yourself, how many places can I put a chromatic passing tone? Well, passing tone can only go between whole steps. So every time there's a whole step, you could chromatically connect the two notes. So in C major, that would be C to D, D to E, F to G, G to A, and A to B. And then nothing between E and F because it's a half step. Nothing between B and C because it's another half step. So given that a bebop scale only contains one chromatic note, that would mean that you would have to think of 5 different scales to get all the chromatic notes in one key. So if I play this chromatic lick over a 2, 5, and C, however it would continue. Something like that, whatever. I would have to think, okay, for this one, that's Dorian Bebop. For this one, that's C major bebop. For this one, that's G dominant bebop. It's all too much. And instead, I'm just thinking all C major and just using passing tones to keep the chord tones on strong beats. Now, obviously, that's easier said than done, and it's legwork that you have to do. Starting on certain notes makes a difference in where a passing note will be needed to keep the beat from flipping in terms of chord tones on strong beats. Adding triplet or 16th turns, that'll throw things off. And Barry Harris talks about a lot of these rules in his videos, so you can check those out if you're interested. I didn't learn that way, but you might find it helpful. Again, I'm hoping to do a comprehensive video or series on the method I teach students, but for now, experiment with the different places that you can add chromaticism in a key without leaving that key or using other scales to achieve it. All right, have at it.